We're ready.
All right. I'll call the December 8th, 2025 meeting of the El Dorado Irrigation District Board of Directors to order. Roll call, please.
Directors Penn, Mansfield, Dwyer, Anzini, and Day present. General Manager Van Dier, General Counsel Polson, and Board Clerk Sullivan present.
Thank you. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Hold on for 1 second. Okay, we're ready.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. So moved. Thank you, Director Day.
Seconded.
Thank you, Director Anzini. Any board comment? Any public comment on this item?
For members of the public that would like to address the board on the adoption of today's agenda, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2. President Dwyer, does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the adoption of today's agenda, moved by Day and seconded by Director Anzini. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Okay, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. I'm moving on to the nomination election. I'd like to thank my fellow board members for their support, preparation, and participation in our board meetings last year. I think we have a very strong board that's involved, interested, and trying to do the best for the ratepayers and the employees, our team members. So really do appreciate all your preparation and input and thoughtful comments on important items affecting the district. Having said that, I will use the power vested in me to nominate our president for starting today, and I nominate Lori Anzini to that spot. Also, I nominate Chuck Mansfield to be the vice president. Is that right? Or vice chair? Vice president. Okay, thank you. And so we'll take a second if there is one.
Second.
Thank you, Director Penn. Any board comment?
Yeah, I'd like to thank you, Pat, for smooth sailing this past year and keeping a positive, intelligent, and collegial atmosphere in the board. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other board comments? Is there any public comment on this item?
If members of the public would like to address the board on the nomination and election of the board president and vice president, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Dwyer, does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the nomination and election of Director Anzini as president, Director Mansfield as vice president, moved by Director Dwyer and seconded by Director Penn. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Okay, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, and the presentation of the gavel. Congratulations, Madam President?
We don't have to move, thank you.
No, we're not going to move.
Peaceful transfer of power.
That's it. So far, so far.
And this is is our first anniversary.
Yes.
That's right.
We survived. Thanks to your able leadership, President Dwyer, or ex-President Dwyer.
Thanks.
Yes, I would, let me make sure I have this right. Here now. So I just want to, again, thank you, President, past President Emeritus Dwyer, for actually staying in a stable position about all the things that we went through this year. It's been a very different year for the employees, and I congratulate the whole board for standing together and making sure everything just smoothly came together. So much appreciation to Mr. Dwyer, Director Dwyer, for doing that. Okay, we'll move on with communications.
Good morning. Today I have employee appreciation to share. The district received a message from Eric, an EID customer, expressing his appreciation for the outstanding service provided by Chris Soul, Corey Duarte, Dennis Johnson, Joe Price, Walt Zimmerman, and Merrick Christensen, construction and maintenance workers in the wastewater collections operations. Following the repair, Eric shared his gratitude for the team's professionalism, timely response, and quality of their work, noting that the yard looks perfect and everything was completed quickly and efficiently. Excellent customer service is one of our core values, core guiding principles, and Tony, Chris, Corey, Dennis, Joe, Walt, and Merrick exemplify this through their commitment and positive contributions. So thank you to those staff.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on the agenda to public comments. Are there any items on the agenda tonight, or today, excuse me, good morning, that need to be discussed by the public?
Not on the agenda.
Not on the agenda, yes.
If members of the public would like to address the board on any items not on today's agenda, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2. President Zini, does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to communications. General Manager.
Today I do have an update on our Reservoir 1 line and cover replacement emergency project. It's related to an outage. On Friday, we sent out a notification related to an outage for Wednesday, December 10th, that will impact 42 customers in the Pollock Pines area, and it's expected to last about 13 hours. Following Friday's notification, we're going to do another notification today to those same customers, letting them know of the outage to allow them to plan for December 10th. As a courtesy, we're going to send the notification to a larger group of customers, about 840 people or 840 homes, to ensure that there's awareness should the outage extend beyond the 42 customers that we anticipate being affected, and in case those customers see lower pressures because of the work that's going to be done in that area. And we will ensure that we will keep the board apprised, as well as those customers, should anything occur that results in that outage going longer than we're anticipating. It is a fairly complex project that we're engaging in, which dictates the extent of the outage lasting 13 hours. If members of the public have questions, they can reach out to our customer service team, and we will keep them apprised or answer their questions as those come up. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I had a question.
Yes.
We briefly communicated on Friday about possibly doing flyers or door hangers for those 42 customers? Are we going to be able to do that?
Doing door hangers is pretty resource intensive, and we're going to have most of the staff that would be able to do that kind of thing are going to be involved in the outage and taking care of what needs to be taken care of in the system. However, Friday's notification was through phone calls that went to residents. Today's is going to be the same. This morning, staff were looking at those calls to see if the calls were picked up or not. If we have a subset, in which we hopefully will have later today, we will be able to go to those homes specifically rather than doing it for everyone. So that's the plan.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Good, great. Any other board member comments or questions? All right, anybody from the audience? Thank you very much. Next, we're going to go on to communications. General Manager's already done hers. Clerk to the board?
None today, thank you.
Board of Directors, anything to discuss?
Well, a number of us went to the Association of California Water Agencies last week. I went down a day or so earlier for the JPIA, the Joint Powers Insurance, and I also attended the foundation, the Aqua Foundation. It's a full week, a lot of information. I have a full list of topics that the General Manager and I will be just discussing later today. I won't burden you with all of them, but just as a board member, hitting 1 year, it really helps me to understand the workings of water in general and how it impacts California specifically, and our very divergent state, but then there are commonalities, and it was a useful time.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
I just want to give thanks. Been stuck down in the Thule fog week after week after week, and I was so hopeful that coming up here to Placerville, but I was getting scared. It was getting closer and closer, and it was still thick as heck. And suddenly, the fog parted, and I don't know what that yellow thing in the sky is, but it's great, and I appreciated it.
Did you get sun safety training before you came up here?
I know.
Okay. Yes, Director Dwyer.
As the appointed board member to the El Dorado Water Agency, I attended their meeting last Wednesday, and one of the pertinent topics that affects EID on the agenda was the feasibility study for the Alder Creek Dam project. And there's an agreement that was proffered to the board members for a study, to fund the study. It's $600,000, and the water agency is going to contribute half, $300,000 of basically El Dorado taxpayer money, and the Bureau of Reclamation will contribute the other half. The water agency will manage the project, the study, and select the contractor and proceed from there. Director Vericamp, EDWA Director Vericamp, expressed the same concerns that I had about any negative impacts on EID's infrastructure or water rights. So we made it clear that we want those protected. We'll just see. I'm sure it's going to be a fairly lengthy study, so we'll progress from here. End of report.
The report.
The project refuses to die.
So far, project.
So any other comments? I'll make my last report. I also attended Aqua, but before that I attended with some of our staff members the Mountain County Water Agency Water Forum that we had in Auburn. And it was very beneficial, had some great panels who were speaking. I think Director, Penn was with me too. Great panels, great staff, some of our own staff members participating. And it was a bold day. It was sunny. And it actually turned out quite well. I also attended as a representative at Aqua and several of the workshops. The benefits of employees, our staff members who went this time, I think was overwhelmingly a success. Basically, in the many times that I've gone on this workshop, not a lot of staff members. Our top echelon have been there, but we've had other ones that have been there this time, and I think it was beneficial as a staff training, also getting to know other water agencies and being able to participate in the workshops and refine the information that we use here at EID, and then seeing how other water agencies perform their results and their opinions, plus their successes. And I find it very informative. Of course, the ones that I liked the most, of course, as we are seeing in changes, is the active communication to your ratepayers. And a lot of the transparency that almost all public agencies go through kind of gets weeded out and sieved through. So being open and transparent on what we're doing, such as attending the El Dorado County Water Agency or attending Mountain County Water or attending safety issues, anything that the board members here do is benefit of ratepayers. And any time that we have our staff members attend, that is even more so. Because the more communication you have, the more information that is coming in, it is better off for all of us. So I really appreciate, I felt it was a real successful. It was not just a trip to go and have fun. Believe me, I wish I could have slept more. I do know that it did have sun there, and that was beneficial, but the whole ride down on the airplane, the whole ride back up was socked in. And this is the first time I've seen sun in the last 4 days when we came up here. So much appreciation to the staff. I hope you enjoyed yourself and you bring those lessons that you brought back, and it was beneficial. That's the end of my comment. Okay, any other reports? We're going to move on to the consent calendar.
If I may, I'd like to pull items 2 and 3 for separate consideration.
Okay.
I'm anticipating continuing in my contract with Matt Veerkamp Vineyards for vineyard management services. And although Matt Veerkamp Vineyards is separate and distinct from Doug Veerkamp General Engineering, it shares common ownership. So I still believe it's best that I recuse from any items where Doug Veerkamp Engineering is involved. Thank you.
Okay.
And I would also like to pull 3, just for a more in-depth explanation of what's going on.
Oh, okay. We'll get that.
Then I'll move the consent calendar absent items 2 and 3.
And I will second that.
Thank you. All right. So for items, there's a motion on the floor, on the board. Any comments from the public?
If members of the public would like to address the board on the approval of today's consent calendar, minus items 2 and 3, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2. President Anzini, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on the approval of today's consent calendar minus items 2 and 3, moved by Director Day and seconded by Director Dwyer. I believe we're ready for the vote.
So, thank you. Board members vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. So now we have information items, but what we have been requested
Actually, we need to consider consent calendar item number 2.
Yes.
I'd like to move
Thank you.
consent item number 2.
Second.
Okay. Anybody from the public? No?
If members of the public would like to address the board on consent calendar item number 2, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda.
Okay.
President Anzini, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on consent calendar item number 2, moved by Director Day and seconded by Director Penn. And as a reminder, Director Mansfield will be recusing himself from this item. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Okay. Director's vote.
Division 1, 2, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries.
So that moves us to consent item number 3.
The reason I asked it pulled is this is just an example of the impacts of the district from aging infrastructure. And going through the board packet, there were just like so many things that we've encountered. So I think it would be beneficial for the public just to understand the complexities of the work we do. And I recognize it's an emergency declaration and requires a 4/5, and I have no problem with this, but I just think it would behoove us to have a fuller explanation of what we encountered when we didn't have the option to put in the replacement of Reservoir 1 according to our normal schedule. So, Ms. Goldman.
Great.
Yeah, no problem. So Daniel Goldman, Senior Civil Engineer here with the district. I'll give kind of an overview of the consent item, and then we can kind of open it up to questions. Bill Pedersen, Drinking Water Operations Manager, is also here. So if there are any more pointed operations-related questions, he'll probably jump in and help with those as well. So current status of the Reservoir 1 Emergency Cover Replacement Project. I like to divide the project in my mind into 2 pieces. We have implementation of a bypass of Reservoir 1, and then we have the actual construction of the floating cover and that replacement of that infrastructure. So the last couple of months have been heavily focused on planning the bypass. As we've gone through the process of understanding how we're going to remove Reservoir 1 for service to perform the project, we've ran into a number of different things. So I'll kind of walk through them in order that they're listed here in the consent item. So first and foremost, we had to install a pipeline to connect to some temporary storage tanks, which are now staged, and the pipeline installation is complete. Throughout the installation of that pipeline, we ran into quite a few unknown conditions that complicated that project. We had a number of unmarked utilities that were on our EID property up there at Res 1 that we needed to carefully navigate. We had a fairly complex disinfection process required to get the tanks disinfected along with a manifold and a pipeline. So there were a few moving parts there. And we found some additional fittings and things that were encased in concrete that further complicated the installation of that pipeline. But that was successfully completed towards the end of October. The next thing yeah, go ahead.
Do you think they encased them in concrete as a way to try to seal a leak, or?
No, I think it was just old thrust resistance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was at an existing T.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. The next thing here is the failed slide gates that we found. There are 3 slide gates located at the discharge of Reservoir 1. One is a 36-inch gate that isolates the actual outlet pipe of the reservoir itself. That water then moves into a distribution vault to go down the El Dorado main number 1, or the old Sly Park intertie. We call it Sly Park intertie Moose Hall transmission. So there are 3 slide gates rather than isolation valves. That was just the installation at the time that was chosen back in, it was, well, various eras, but some of it as early as the 60s, some of it from the 80s. What we found is that all 3 of those slide gates were inoperable. So when we went to test them, 2 of the 3 were completely seized. The third would move, and it would move into isolation position. However, the seals had failed, and it was leaking over 3 CFS is our best estimate of water. So that didn't allow for isolation of the reservoir that would allow us to safely work downstream and complete what needs to be done on the 10th. So there's some additional cost associated with replacing that infrastructure with a new slide gate and a couple of valves downstream of Reservoir 1. Another key piece of the puzzle here is on the El Dorado main 1. As I mentioned, that's one of the distribution lines out of Res 1. We do have some work that needs to be done in a vault that's approximately 20 feet deep. So this vault was cast monolithically, meaning that we don't understand without drawings and details, which we don't have on this old infrastructure, what type of forces were being handled by the monolithic pour of the lid. So the lid was also concrete. We didn't have any rebar information or enough structural information to safely determine whether or not we could modify that vault, which is required to complete this work, as the existing access hatch is very small, and we need to get some pretty sizable equipment and tools in there. So we did have to go through the process of having a structural engineer perform an analysis and come up with a bracing plan so that we could remove the lid from that vault safely and have staff enter that vault without risk of collapse. So that was another unforeseen issue as we started evaluating the need to get into that vault. Beyond that, I would say, we had a few issues with the weather. We had some of that heavy rain in mid-November. We had to get some rental equipment in so that we could continue to dewater the cover of Reservoir 1, which I think we talked about at length during the October 14th board meeting about the risks associated with rainwater accumulating on that cover. And just with all of this, of course, we've had quite a bit of staff time and labor that's gone in from both engineering and operations to keep this moving. So we've been really working on the implementation of the bypass for the last couple of months, and we are working toward this Wednesday, December 10th, which, as General Manager Vandiar mentioned, is going to be our shutdown to isolate Reservoir 1 from the system. We'll move over onto our temporary storage tanks, and the goal from there will be to move into construction as we go through the holidays.
Thank you. It just seems so complex, and I appreciate staff. It's, obviously a lot of problem solving going on there. And it is unfortunate that we had to divert staff and our resources to something that will keep coming up just because we're dealing with aging infrastructure. Yeah. So I appreciate the report.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, this experience then will prepare us for when we replace that reservoir with our concrete tanks.
It certainly is teaching us quite a bit about what it takes to isolate that reservoir.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions from the board? Okay.
Are you moving the item?
Move 3.
I'll second it.
Okay. It's been motioned and seconded to approve item number 3.
Board on consent calendar, item number 3. Please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Anzini, does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on consent calendar. Item number 3, moved by Director Penn and seconded by Director Day. And as a reminder, Director Mansfield will be recusing himself from this item. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Okay. Board members vote.
Division 1, 2, 4, and 5 voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. There goes our audience. All right, so we'll move on to, at the end of the consent calendar, has been requested that we move action item number 16 in front of information items. Hang on there. So we're working on item 16 on the action items.
Good morning, President and members of the board. My name is Madison Franklin. I'm the district's finance manager, and I'm here today to present the 2024 single audit report. I am joined remotely by Mr. Badawi with Badawi and Associates, and he will be giving the auditor's report later in the presentation. Previous board action. Next slide, please. Great. On August 25th, 2025, the board received and filed the 2024 annual audit and report on applying agreed upon procedures related to the appropriations limit. Summary of issue. The Single File Audit Act of 1984, amended in 1996, establishes the requirements for auditing non-federal entities that spend federal awards. Uniform guidance requirements for these audits are detailed in 2 Code of Federal Regulations, Part 200.500 and following, which covers both single audits and program-specific audits. An audit is required if the entity expends more than $750,000 in federal awards during a fiscal year. For fiscal years beginning on or after October 1st, 2024, the expenditure threshold increases to $1 million. I will now turn the microphone over to Mr. Badawi.
Good morning. Thank you, Madison. My name is Ahmed Badawi. I was the audit partner on the El Dorado Irrigation District audit. And today I'll be presenting to you the results of the single audit, the federal compliance audit. So if we go on to the next slide, that's just the title of my presentation, the single audit, and then this is what I'm going to cover today. I'll give you a brief overview of our firm and the engagement team, a brief overview of the audit methodology, the results of the audit, obviously, and then some of the required communications as your independent auditor. And if you can go to the next slide and the next slide, we'll talk about our firm. We are a firm that have about 25 years of experience. We are specialized in municipal government and municipal audits. We audit about 65 government clients, about 21 special districts. We have about 30 employees. And so far, knock on wood, we have 0 lawsuits, disciplinary or legal action against the firm. As a matter of fact, we just completed our peer review and received a clean peer review, which is something that is done every 3 years on all CPA firms. If we can go on to the next slide, a summary of our engagement team. On this slide here is myself as the engagement partner. We always have a quality control reviewer. We had a senior auditor assigned, 2 professional staff, and also an IT specialist. If we can move to the next slide, the audit methodology. On the following slide, you will see just a brief summary of our audit methodology, and this is really focusing on that audit of the federal grants. So it starts by what we call the SEFA, which is really the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. This is something that the district provide to us, a listing of what the city expended in federal awards during the year. Then we go through a risk assessment phase where we have to assess whether the district itself qualify as a low-risk auditee and also assess each of the federal programs, whether they should be tested or not based on prior audits, dollar amounts, and a variety of other factors. Then we move on to the compliance phase, and this is really assessing the risk of the district not complying with the compliance requirements, and also testing the district compliance, and then finally reporting on the schedule of expenditures and also on our compliance findings and audit results. If we can go on to the next slide, talking about the audit results. So this is a summary of the audit. The most important thing is the type of opinion we issued. We have issued an unmodified opinion. And that really means that we believe that the district complied in all material respects with the requirements of the grants. As far as auditee risk, the district did not qualify as a low-risk auditee. And this is really relating to the fact that the district did not have a single audit in the last 2 years. Also, the fact that the district had material weaknesses identified in prior audits and internal controls. So those are criteria set by the federal government that will preclude the district from being a low-risk auditee. All that really means, it means that we just have to test more. We have to cover a bigger percentage, minimum 40% of the total federal expenditures instead of 20%. There were 2 programs selected to be tested, the disaster grants and the hazard mitigation grant. The total federal awards amounted to about $4.4 million. The 2 grants we tested represented about 98% of that amount. There was a deficiency in internal control and also a non-compliance matter identified. It was really identified to us by the district that the district double reported expenses to the Cal OES, and as a result got over reimbursed So as a consequence, future reimbursement requests were offset by that over reimbursement. So eventually the district didn't really have to cut a check, but there was just offset of future reimbursement. If we go on to the next slide, is the required communications as your independent auditor. And on this slide here, you will see just a summary of the responsibilities that we are, as the auditor, are responsible to provide an opinion on whether the district complied with the major compliance requirements, provide an opinion on the schedule of expenditures of federal award, and basically say whether it's fairly stated in relation to the audited financial statements or not. We're required to evaluate and test internal control over compliance, evaluate the district compliance with the major federal programs, and then communicate with the governing body. Management have responsibilities in this process, is to take responsibility for the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, establish and maintain internal control over compliance, make financial records available to us, establish control that will prevent and detect fraud, inform us of all known and suspected fraud, comply with laws and regulations, and take corrective action on any audit findings. With that, I want to say thank you for allowing us to provide service to the district, and I will hand it over back to Madison.
Thank you. Okay. As Mr. Badawi stated, the district received one significant deficiency during the 2024 single audit. This was due to a discrepancy in expenses reported to Cal OES. In quarter 4 of 2024, the district had an error on the expenditure calculations submitted to Cal OES, which resulted in duplicated costs being requested for reimbursement. This error occurred during a period of high turnover in the grant analyst role, with multiple departments assisting and increasing error risk. The district identified the error in quarter 1 of 2025 and notified Cal OES immediately of the mistake when submitting the quarter 1 report. Cal OES proceeded by processing quarterly reports as non-payments until the newly submitted expenditures exceeded the previously overstated amount reported by the district. This error resulted in a significant deficiency and one instance of non-compliance. The district's corrective action plan includes grant financial reporting being centralized within the finance department, where staff have specialized system knowledge and experience reviewing financial data. Staff are being cross-trained on the district's grant programs to reduce error risk in the event of staff turnover. All grant-related financial reports are now being reviewed and approved by the finance manager and finance director. And staff is also working on obtaining a new financial software which should simplify expenditure reporting. This leads us to board options. Option 1 is to receive and file the 2024 single audit report. Staff recommends option 1. And I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.
Okay.
I'll move option 1.
I'll second it.
With a question for both you and our auditor. Did these findings have any impact on our ratepayers?
No.
Thank you.
I just had a question. We're caught up now? We're square with Cal OES?
Yes, we are. That program is fully expended, those costs now, so we've caught up too.
Okay, great. And we're never ever going to have another... Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? All right, questions from the public.
If members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 16, please refer to the detailed instructions in today's agenda. President Anzini, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 16, option 1, moved by Director Dwyer and seconded by Director Day. I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, please vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, that takes us back up the list to information items. We'll hear from our attorney.
Bad things happened the last time I touched this microphone, so I'm gonna. Good morning, board. I'm Brian Polson. I'm District General Counsel, and I'm going to be here today to present an update to the board on our insurance recovery from the Caldor fire claim. As you will recall, the Caldor fire started in 2021, and the district took quite a number of actions in response to that. So this is a brief description of the prior board action. I won't detail any of this. Next slide. The Caldor fire caused significant damage to district infrastructure, and so the point of my presentation today is to update the board as we have finally closed out our insurance claim about the recovery that we received from our insurance provider, the Association of California Water Agencies Joint Powers Insurance Authority, and then to talk about some lessons learned from this experience. Next slide. So let me just briefly take you back through some of the damage and recovery or damage and repair that was conducted post Caldor fire in 2021. I won't go through each of the incidents, but these are just some of the highlights here. So damage to flume 30, on the left is the damage and right is a picture of the repair. That's okay. Just a couple of slides to show you the before and after. Flume 4, before and after. Flume 5, and then one more, flume 6. Next slide. In total, the district experienced 29 incidents of property damage, which were included in the claim that we filed with our insurance provider. Damages totaled just under $30 million in physical damage losses, and a little over, or a little under, I should say, $5 million in business income loss. The business income is our inability to generate hydropower during the period in which the canal, wasn't available to convey water to the powerhouse. So the business income loss was covered by our insurance claim, and so in total, the district submitted a claim to Aqua JPIA in the amount of $34.4 million around. Next slide. Immediately, once the damage occurred, staff began working with Aqua JPIA to maximize its recovery. Now, it's not quite as simple as just calling your provider and saying, hey, we've had a loss, you're going to take care of that, right? There's a lot of back and forth that has to happen over a long period of time. Staff has to detail and really scrutinize in detail its written documentation of losses. There's a lot of back and forth in responding to the insurance provider to justify the losses. In some circumstances, the adjuster came out to physically observe and document the district's damages. So it was a great deal of effort that the district put into working with its insurance provider. I will say Aqua JPIA was fantastic. Their staff was very helpful throughout the process, very collaborative. There was no experience in which we felt like there was any conflict or anything like that, which we were really pleased to be able to, which I'm very pleased to be able to report on. Just a little bit about Aqua JPIA. It is a risk pool. So unlike your State Farm or Travelers Insurance, where you go out and just purchase a policy from the market, the district participates in a risk pool, which is essentially a nonprofit organization of like members. In other words, water agencies that have similar risks as the district does. Aqua JPIA self-insures for a portion of its losses, and then it goes out to the market and purchases excess insurance. And then on top of that, reinsurance for the whole pool. So you can think of this, it's been described to me, as like a layered cake, where the first layer of the cake is what we all, as the members of the joint Powers Insurance Authority, we self-insure for, and then add on top of that a layer of excess insurance and another layer of excess insurance and then a layer of reinsurance and so on and so forth until we get to the policy maximum of $500 million per occurrence. That was, the policy terms that existed in the 2001-2022 policy. Now, there were some exclusions for damages to canals, flumes, and power generators on the excess insurance layers, some of them. So what that resulted in is after JPIA made its initial payment of $11 million in recovery, we were subject to a 35% exclusion for damages to those facilities not covered by the excess insurance. Now, Aqua JPIA has been working to streamline that, to bring down the exclusions, and I'm happy to report that in our current policy, that 35% exclusion was reduced to 25%. So, Aqua JPIA, from my vantage point, does a really good job in serving its members and meeting its members where their needs are. Next slide.
Brian, it's kind of along that line. We're in a way, because we're and when we're replacing our flumes, we're doing concrete in a lot of cases, not in all, and that will help hopefully with any future potential losses, mitigating it, and they're less likely to be destroyed or fail.
Well, I'll defer to our engineering and operations staff on that, but yeah, I think generally that's true. The more we're able to mitigate our risk, the less likely it is that we're going to have these large losses that we're experiencing. Now, the reality of the situation is we live where we do. We're always going to be subject to risks associated with wildfire or floods or landslides, and so it's important that we have an insurance provider that is able to provide these kind of resources to us. But I'm going to get back to some lessons learned on this claim and others that might kind of address your comment as well. So on October 23rd, the district received its final payment for all insurable losses, which brought the sum total of insurance recovery to $23 million, a little over $23 million. At the time, the general manager, Vandiar, and I discussed reporting this to the board as a general manager's update in the November board meeting, but I wanted to provide the board with a little bit more information about this particular claim, so I requested to be able to give this presentation today. The current unaudited outstanding claim balance is a little over $11 million, and that includes, some of the physical losses as well as business income loss. We continue to work through FEMA to try and recover that, but I want to be clear that it is unlikely that we will recover the sum total of that outstanding balance, partly because there are certain losses that FEMA just doesn't recover, such as business income loss. And there are others that are subject to a variety of conditions that we may not be able to meet. But we have worked very hard and continue to work hard to try and recover as much as possible through FEMA, and we'll continue to do so. It is lengthy. As you all know, we recently discussed that the district had received an additional recovery from 2017 losses through FEMA. And so, the reality is it just takes a very long time to do that, but we continue to do so. Next slide. So here are some takeaways. The Caldor fire damages and the insurance recovery process demonstrate that it is vital that the district maintain sufficient cash reserves to be able to rely upon in order to respond in the time necessary to address large losses like this one. The district, when the fire occurred, had to act very quickly to bring in contractors, to start to repair facilities and bring them back online, partly to mitigate ongoing losses such as the business income loss that we briefly referenced earlier. It can only do that when we have cash reserves to be able to rely upon. The next is that even working with a very cooperative insurance provider, it takes a really long time. to fully recover on our claims. And that's partly because, as I said, there's a lot of back and forth, a lot of scrutiny that has to go into documenting losses and so forth. And then finally, not all of our losses are or ever will be covered by insurance, which again emphasizes the importance of maintaining adequate cash reserves to be able to respond appropriately. Now, this is an information item, and as I said, I requested this because I wanted to provide the board with additional update beyond just a basic report. But I did have an alternative motive, and that is I wanted to publicly and personally thank district staff that worked so hard for so long to maximize this recovery. You know, recovering $23 million from insurance on a large loss like this is a really big deal. And so I wanted to say hats off to the staff in the Office of General Counsel, and I'm going to avoid naming names because I don't want to embarrass anyone sitting in the back of the room or leave anybody out. But it really was a team effort, not just the staff in my department, but also our engineering staff, our operations staff, particularly in hydro, and our finance staff. It is a huge effort, and so I just want to say kudos and congratulations to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Day.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody, well, first of all, thank you, Brian, and thank everybody for, it is a large recovery, so I'm grateful for that. You know, as everybody in El Dorado County knows, having property insurance can be challenging, and dealing with getting non-renewed, whether you, I mean, we got non-renewed from Nationwide. We never ever made a claim after 25 years with them, just because of where we're at. Are we at the district at any risk of having our insurance rates go way up or not being able to get insurance?
Our insurance rates are going up. They're always going to be going up. But I think to answer your question, no. Part of being in the risk pool with the other 400-something members of Aqua JPIA is that, you know, we're in this together. It is a nonprofit organization, so we're trying to mitigate the risks that we have. Of course, you know, obtaining excess insurance does require going out to market, and as we've seen, there have been really large losses, particularly in the space of wildfire. So I do think that there's risk. I do think that our costs will go up. Property and liability insurance will go up over time. We did see an increase from our last policy period to our new policy in property and liability and our hydro assets, but it wasn't. I don't remember off the top of my head what the number was, but it was sub 10% or around there, something like that. So you know, that's what we're seeing now. And I expect that it will be like that for the foreseeable future. But thankfully, we're not subject to the same kind of volatility that so many of us are seeing in our residential homeowners insurance.
Thank you.
Director Dwyer.
Thank you. I guess from the high level analysis of the claim, the loss, the claim, the process, and again, hats off to staff for recovering as much as you did, but we're still $11 million short that came out of our retained earnings or reserves that then affects our bond rating because its days cash on hand is reduced. So there's a broader impact on this than just the numbers on the page. And I think it's important, as with everything we do, what's the impact on our ratepayers? Well, the impact's going to be we're going to have to refill that hole somehow. And as we go into our budget discussion in our next item, we'll be addressing some of those things. Unfortunate circumstance, what could we do about it? Nothing. Do we have to fix it? Yes. And I guess we're going to have to, for the lack of a better term, eat a good portion of that $11 million.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this just highlights the virtues of having a healthy amount of days operating cash on hand. Sometimes it's the thing you don't see coming that crushes your pocketbook. But I think the board has highlighted many times our desire to increase the amount of days operating cash on hand. And it points out the challenge that staff has in front of them to find the balance of how do we develop that cash while simultaneously cash flowing CIP projects, other planned maintenance, to ensure we continue to provide safe and reliable service as well.
Excellent. Director Pan.
So I'm the rep on JPIA, and I concur. These people are very dedicated. They're really great to work with, and they have the best interests of the district statewide in mind. And they are in many respects the powerhouse behind Aqua. At JPI, they gave a presentation on what they're calling parametric insurance, which is essentially a hazard-specific event of which they work out the numbers. And this is at this point only for earthquakes, but clearly it may be potentially expanded to other hazards where if this event occurs, no claims are needed. They basically toss you, a certain amount of money for those immediate costs. And that's one of the things I'll be talking with the general manager about later. But I thought it was interesting. The payout isn't that great, but it addresses those issues of like, we have something bad happen, we need to spend money now, and it would be an augmentation of that. And I understand the hellacious things that need to be gone through in order to get recovery through FEMA and insurance. Being a career emergency manager, I recall when I was working at Kaiser, the Loma Prieta earthquake was in 1989, and Kaiser closed the books on the recovery to their hospitals in 1999, 10 years later. So they streamlined their process. Only 7 years on the 2017 impacts. Again, kudos to staff. And I was going through the warrants, and I noticed our bill for JPI was $1 million. But we got $23 million back. I think that's probably money well spent. So thank you.
Yes, I would like to point out, thank you, Director Penn, for pointing that out. It took words right out of my mouth. The investment of making sure we have insurance is like just a regular homeowner. If you don't have insurance, your house burns down. How is that going to deal with your basic living? In this case, this kept the water running, and it may have been cut off for a while, and the only resource that hurt us was the power and the energy that we needed. That hit our budget pretty stiffly because we are a utility. We're not just a water conveyance system. I think that the importance of us staying in a JPIA has benefited. Ratepayers need to understand that that cost will have some price, just like our insurance. Insurance is going up for your health insurance and your homeowner's insurance, your car insurance. So, the insurance industry is quite an investment, a place to invest, just in case you wanted to make some money on that one. But I appreciate your report on this. I hope that the images in this report, a slideshow kind of be put on our website if it's available as a key point, at least for this week's news. So, I appreciate staff doing all the hard work. It takes years for this magnitude of a problem. And if you think about the Loma Prieta earthquake, how it impacted millions of people, this just impacted maybe 60,000. So, my appreciation. So, thank you very much for your report. And we'll move on to the action items. Number 7.
Actually, we need to just call for public comment on this
that's right.
item.
Public comment on this information item.
If members of the public would like to address the board on information item number 15, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Anzini, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on information item number 15. There is no action required by the board.
Okay, we'll move on to action item number 17.
Okay. Good morning again. I am back to present the adoption of the 2025 through 2026 mid-cycle operating and capital budget and the 2026 through 2030 financial plan. Previous board action. On March 20th, 2000, the board adopted a multi-year operating budget process. Then on December 11th, 2023, the board accepted the cost of service analysis, otherwise known as a COSA, and approved changes to rates per 2023 Proposition 218 notice for the 2024 through 2028 fiscal years. On November 12th, 2024, the board adopted the 2025 through 2026 operating budget and 2025 through 2029 financial plan. And then 4 weeks ago, on November 10th, 2025, the board adopted, the board adopted the 2026 through 2030 capital improvement plan and held a workshop to review the draft 2025 through 2026 mid-cycle operating and capital budget and 2026 through 2030 financial plan. A lot of dates in there. Summary of issue. In accordance with Board Policy 3010, the board adopts a 2-year operating budget and conducts a mid-cycle review to identify necessary adjustments and to update the 5-year financial plan for any known or anticipated changes. Staff presented the proposed 2025 through 2026 mid-cycle operating budget, 2026 capital improvement plan budget, and the 5-year financial plan during the budget workshop on November 10th. The proposed budget and financial plan now reflect changes as discussed with the board during the workshop. These are the items we will be covering today. We will begin with the 2025 year-end projections, then review the 2026 operating and CIP budgets, then move on to the 5-year financial plan, and finish with reviewing the reserve balances. This table compares the 2025 adopted budget with the 2025 year-end projections by revenue and expense categories. Revenues are projected to be approximately $135.9 million, which is $8.5 million higher than the approved budget. As shown on the chart, the 2 major increases to revenue were to interest and facility capacity charges. All facility capacity revenue is restricted revenue source, and of the $3 million of interest earned in 2025, $2.8 million was restricted for interest earned on 2024A unspent debt proceeds. Due to these revenue restrictions, the increase had no impact to days cash on hand. For unrestricted revenues, there was an increase of $2.2 million in FEMA reimbursements that were offset with decreased grant revenue of $2.3 million. That is still expected to be collected in 2026. In addition, there was a decreased net impact to miscellaneous revenues of $600,000. As you can see in the table, operating expenses are expected to be $4.6 million less than the adopted 2025 budget due to decreases in several areas, including benefits, labor offsets, utilities, and professional services. These savings will be utilized to help fund the district reserves. This table shows the same categories as the last table, but now compares the 2025 year-end projections to the 2026 mid-cycle proposed budget. The 2026 proposed budget consists of $130.3 million in revenues, $76.6 million in operating expenses, $35.3 million in debt service, and $34.4 million for the CIP budget. I will discuss more details on these variances on the next slides. As discussed in the budget workshop, the CIP is a 5-year plan adopted by the board and referenced in the annual budget, with individual projects approved by the board on a project-by-project basis throughout the year from the applicable fund balance. To strengthen the connection between long-term planning and annual budgeting, staff proposes that the board adopt a 5-year CIP and approve the budget for the first year of the CIP as part of the annual budget adoption process. This proposal will establish the planned CIP expenditures for the next year's budget and incorporate this process into future budget cycles, creating a consistent annual process for funding capital projects. The change will better align the long-term CIP with the short-term current year budget, providing a more comprehensive financial picture. It will also ensure proper accounting of capital projects, increase transparency to the CIP, and follow best practices recommended by the Government Finance Officers Association. The proposed budget includes the approved rate increases for water of 12% and wastewater and recycled water of 3% each. Staff included the residential growth rate of 0.62% per El Dorado County. As previously discussed, we anticipate collecting grant reimbursements from 2025 of approximately $2.3 million in 2026. As discussed in detail during the budget workshop, expenses include increased personnel of $5 million. This is $2 million for wages. That includes the negotiated 3% of cost of living adjustments and wages and benefits for the 4 new operators in training positions. There is also $3.1 million in increased benefit costs related to health insurance, retiree benefits, CalPERS, and the district's share for FICA. The materials and services budget is estimated to be $4.9 million higher than the year-end projections for 2025. Using historical data comparisons and average conditions, chemicals increased $300,000 and operating supplies increased $1.4 million, primarily due to an increase in general operating supplies, fuel, and repair and maintenance supplies. In addition, administrative expenses increased by $900,000 due to an increase in miscellaneous administrative costs, including the cost of internet services, software license, and dues and subscriptions. Professional services increased $1.7 million due to the projected increases in other contractual services, legal fees, and engineering services. There were minimal changes to repair services, capital outlay, and contingency with a combined increase of $100,000. As discussed during the workshop, staff reviewed utilities and made an adjustment which reduced the proposed budget by approximately $0.3 million or $300,000. The 2026 proposed budget includes a $7.1 million increase in debt service payments. Debt service payments with the largest year-over-year increases included 2024A with an increase of $700,000, an increase to 2020C by $3.8 million, and an increase to 2020D by $4.5 million. One bond, 2014A, had a significant decrease of $2.2 million because of its maturity in 2024. The remaining bonds had smaller offsetting increasing or decreasing payments with a net increase of $300,000. The reason for the increased cost for the 2016 bonds will be discussed later in the presentation. Finally, as previously discussed, a budget of $34.4 million is being proposed for the CIP, which aligns with our 2025 through 2029 CIP plan. Now we will move on to the 2026 through 2030 financial plan. This plan is annually adopted with the budget. It provides starting and projected ending available fund balances, and aligns operational, debt service, and CIP needs. It increases transparency for unrestricted and restricted funding. The 2026 through 2030 financial plan assumptions include the Prop 218 approved for increases for water at 12% and wastewater and recycled water at 3% each through 2028. We've included hypothetical rate increases or increased revenue for 2029 and 2030, pending a cost of service analysis. Staff will work with the rate consultant to determine the best options for the district ratepayers, whether it be rate increases or a possible fee to avoid permanent rate increases. We plan to utilize FCC revenues for eligible debt service payments and for CIP expenditures as needed to support the overall plan and to ensure that development pays its share. We also included the residential growth rate on revenues of 0.62% approved for El Dorado County, and expenses increased based on cost of inflation. Finally, there is an assumption for additional debt in 2028 for the water fund.
Madison?
Yes.
Could you, on the expense increases of 3%, and then these are assumptions, and then 5% in future years, can you elaborate? The 3% I understand, at least the way things are right now. Mm-hmm. Could you elaborate on why staff chose the 5% for future years?
We did both. We researched cost of inflation and looked historically of the expense increases for the district. In fewer years have we had a 3% increase. It's typically closer to that 5% increase. We can do further research and send it over through General Manager Van Dier, if that's okay.
We did these estimations purely for hypothetical purposes to give the board a perspective on what might be. Using historical data is the best access we have to forecast potentially what might happen. So I wouldn't put too much of value into the actual percentages. We just needed to use something to demonstrate that we will see cost increases. How much exactly? Time will tell. But just for the exercise to give a perspective on what might happen beyond 2028, we did that, or 27, and then the next years. So yeah, we could choose 3, we could choose 2, we could choose 1. It's just our best guess based on the historical.
Yes.
So, and I understand that. I just always am concerned if we plan on spending money, we'll end up spending money. So I know it's a moving target, and as we get closer, we'll adjust it. But it did raise a little concern for me.
The top of the slide says assumption.
I know. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Okay. As mentioned on the prior slide, the peach color represents the approved Prop 218 12% rate increase for water in 2026, 2027, and 2028. Highlighted in light blue is the hypothetical revenue increase of 18% needed for the El Dorado Hills Water Treatment Plant and Silver Lake Dam projects. Then the associated debt service payments for these projects is highlighted in red. At the board's request, the impact on the average residential customer would be about $22 per month. However, as discussed, this is pending the cost of service analysis, and staff will work with the consultant to determine the best path forward to fund these projects, whether it be a rate increase or a possible fee that can be reduced as debt service is paid off. Staff have included a 5% rate increase to support operating costs in 2029, highlighted in purple. Historically, operating costs continue to increase without approved rate increases, lowering the district's ability to support future CIP projects. Operating cost increases are in the brown color. With the proposed financial plan for water, the district will be able to support the debt service coverage ratio per the bond covenants and keep the days cash on hand greater than 150 days, which is recommended by the credit agencies. Similarly to water, the wastewater fund includes the Prop 218 approved rate increases through 2028 of 3% in the peach color. The hypothetical revenue increase is included in purple for 2029 and 2030. This 3% rate increase is needed to support operating costs, as with the water fund, historically operating costs continue to increase without approved rate increases, lowering the district's ability to support future CIP projects. The increased operating costs are in the brown color, which kind of looks green up on that screen.
I'll vote green.
Yeah. Please note that the debt service payments are increasing for the wastewater fund by $3.2 million between 2029 and 2030. At the board's request, staff researched this, and it is caused by the 2004, 2008, and 2009 bonds that had fluctuating payments. The bonds have since been refunded to the 2016 series, but there is limited options for leveling out the payments. The municipal advisor for the district was able to level the payments out for the total district, but not for wastewater on its own. The payments will return to the normal level in 2037. This financial plan allows for the wastewater fund to meet the debt service coverage per the bond covenants through 2030. Days of cash on hand is a combined district calculation. However, we would like to see that both funds can meet the days of cash on hand on its own. Through the building of reserves, the wastewater fund will eventually meet this requirement. This financial plan is for the total district that combines both funds. As you can see, the district will meet the debt service coverage ratio and days of cash on hand requirements in all years. This table shows the staff recommendations for use of available unrestricted fund balance to build reserves. As discussed in the budget workshop, the operating reserve is equal to 90 days of cash on hand and will be fully funded per the current policy as well as the self-insurance reserve. The capital reserves will be partially funded at $11.1 million, $17.2 million less than the current policy. As discussed in the budget workshop, staff will be returning with proposed revisions to the reserve policy. If the budget is adopted today, staff plans to return to the board with a revised budget policy that incorporates changes to applicable administrative regulations. Staff will also be engaging in a cost of service analysis in 2026 that will be utilized to update the financial plan during the next budget cycle. Staff will also proceed with debt options that will support the 2028 and 2029 adopted CIP plan that will include the cash flow analysis for the board's consideration. Board options. Option 1 is to adopt the 2025 through 2026 mid-cycle operating and capital budget and the 2026 through 2030 financial plan. Staff recommends option 1.
Okay, board, any questions?
I have a request maybe for a future, looking at the potential large amount of debt we'll be taking on for our water treatment plant and for the dam, Silver Lake Dam, and our debt increasing and our debt service increasing. I wonder if you guys at some point could bring back to the board a discussion of that. Are there any industry standards or averages of how much of an operating budget is commonly or in a healthy way acceptable, for a utility like us to have? Because, and I know Director Dwyer's had expressed concerns about that as well. As it starts to eat up more and more of our operating budget, and it can become a dangerous spiral.
At a high level, I will agree. It's not ideal to have high levels of debt service. This is a goal we're working towards to try to balance the amount of cash we have available to engage in capital improvement projects and debt service. I can never say that we will totally eliminate debt service, but we need a healthy balance. We can bring back some research in terms of what do agencies like us do, what is a reasonable balance between the two. I can assure you that everything we do going forward is going to look to reducing our current debt service. I do feel like it is a little more than we should be carrying. I kind of look at it on a personal level. Nobody wants to have a massive mortgage on your home that you have to pay back over many, many years because you're always obligated to pay that back. But what would be a healthy debt service considering available cash as well as the projects we need to engage in? So we need to find a balance, but we certainly are going to be doing research, and we'll bring back to the board in terms of what we see as indicative of more reasonable balance between cash as well as debt service. And on the debt service end, also looking at loans, low-cost loans that we can engage in. Example is state revolving fund. We learned at Aqua there are some other options that our finance director is very enthusiastic about, like a 1.5, 1.9% interest rate. So we're definitely looking at all avenues as we move forward to try to figure out how we balance more of that for the district.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other? Yes, Director Dwyer.
I think it's important to highlight or daylight that if we approve this budget today, we're approving the 12% rate increase for 26 and 27.
Just 26.
Yeah. So I think it's, and the 3% for wastewater. Sorry, Tracy.
His is yet to come.
But, those are, like you said, the impact on the average customer is going to be about $20 a month for water. Out of current bills are running average per customer about $100 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a fairly good chunk that we need to make sure everybody understands what we're doing out of necessity, but we need to make sure it's daylighted. Plus, I don't think I really believe the hypothetical increases in the out years. What years was that?
29 and 2030.
29 and 30. Given that our capital improvement plan we approved last meeting showed a $10 million increase in debt service in those years. And I don't think the 18% rate increase is going to cover that. So I'd like a little more specificity on how we got to that hypothetical 18% when it looks to me like it'd be more in the high 20s.
I think we have to emphasize that that percentage is minimal. It does not include all of those needs. The problem with that is figuring out what debt service we're going to need and what available cash we will have at that point in time, and any of these loans that we might be able to engage in. But that's our job over this next period of time, this next year. It doesn't include any cost of service analysis. So all of that needs to be engaged in great detail. We try to provide the hypothetical as a perspective. I would take that as a minimal. At minimum, that's what we're going to need.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, is there any questions from the public?
We do not have a first and a second.
Okay, that's right.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded to approve the recommendation. Now,
If members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 17, please refer to the instructions in today's agenda. President Anzini, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 17. Option 1, moved by Director Penn and seconded by Director Mansfield. I believe we're ready for the vote.
all right, board members vote.
Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, last item, number 18. Sewer System Management Plan.
Yes.
All right. Good morning, members of the board, General Manager of NDR. My name is Austin Ram, Associate Engineer here at the district. Today, I will be presenting on the Sewer System Management Plan 2025 update. Got a little excited. Next slide, please. Previous board actions. The last Sewer System Management Plan was updated in July of 2019. Quick summary of issue here. The SSMP is a regulatory document that describes the activities an agency undertakes to manage, operate, and maintain its wastewater collection system, the overall goal of protecting public health and the environment by reducing the number of sanitary sewer spills. Not necessarily an issue. Background. Development and periodic update of an SSMP is mandated by the State Water Resource Control Board's adopted statewide general waste discharge requirements, essentially the operating permit. The SSMP updates require approval from a governing body every 6 years. There was a general order update in 2022, which we'll get into here a little bit with those changes, a little summary of those changes. And the SSMP was originally approved back in 2009. So here's an overview of the elements of the SSMP. I would like to point out 3 specific elements here. Number 8, system evaluation, capacity assurance, and capital improvement. Number 9, monitoring, measurement, and program modifications. And number 10, SSMP program audits. I'm going to pull these out because these are elements that are crucial to the programmatic approach of our CIP and how this document is not just a regulatory document. So back to those changes of the SSMP from that general order. So the reporting timeline changed to audits every 3 years and updates every 6 years, from 2 years and 5 years respectively. The language of sanitary sewer overflows was changed to spills, the more overarching term. They now require a creation of an electronic service area boundary map. Audits must now include corrective actions and a schedule for those corrective actions. And there's also an inclusion of a capital improvement section. And generally, there's just more detail required, such as capacity assessments, key performance indicators, which are the same ones that are already reported on, and condition assessments. So now I wanted to move into more about how the SSMP is not just a regulatory document, but a tool that we can use to create a programmatic approach to our CIP through things such as asset inventory, material condition, age and lifespan, which I'll go into a little bit more later, and location of these assets, as well as the consequence of failures and how that plays into our CIP with things such as asset management programs and CIP projects. And I will be highlighting 2 large projects, current and recent, that again further emphasize that this is a tool as well. So moving on to our system inventory. As of now, there are 60 lift stations, 25,000 roughly sewer service laterals, 231 miles of service laterals, about 9,400 manholes, 411 miles of gravity main pipeline, 55 miles of force main pipeline. Now for this last bullet point, I'm going to go into a little bit of the lifespan and some statistics on the age of some of our pipeline materials. So 71% of our pipelines are polyvinyl chloride, or PVC. This PVC has a lifespan of about 40 to 100 years, depending on when it was manufactured. And 75% of our polyvinyl PVC pipe was installed 1990 or after. Moving on here to asbestos concrete, which makes up 19% of our pipeline. This has a lifespan of about 40 to 70 years, sometimes up to 100. And 68% of that pipe was installed in 1975 or before. Moving on here to vitrified clay pipe, which is about 7% of our pipeline materials. This has a lifespan of about 50 to 100 years, sometimes even up to 150. I believe some of the oldest pipe in the United States is vitrified clay pipe. And with the age on that one, we're about 76% of that pipe in 1975 or before, so same as asbestos concrete. And 3%
always makes me think of Gladding McBean in Lincoln, manufacture a lot of those clay pipes.
The last pipeline material here, 3%, just other materials. And I would like to say that 12% of our pipeline has an unknown age. That is mainly due to annexations of other sewer systems throughout the years. And that highlights the importance of the CCTV inspection program that we have. You can see on that photo on the right, a little bit of a example of inflow and infiltration and how that, this CCTV gives us insight into these conditions without knowing other things such as age and all that. Thank you. All right, moving on to those projects I mentioned earlier. The first one I'd like to highlight is the collection stabilization project. Overall, this was system repairs and protective measures with a summarized scope of stabilizing 4 sewer manholes and 6 pipeline sections. That photo on the top right there is an example of that stabilization. So that pipeline you can see crossing Deer Creek there, that is a stainless steel carrier pipe. So the actual collections pipe is an HDPE pipe inside of that. So a little bit more rust and a little bit more sturdy. The next project here is the collections rehabilitation that was focused on system repairs and preventative maintenance. Summarized scope of rehabilitating 5 sewer manholes, 3 sewer lift station wet wells, and the installation of about 5,000 linear feet of cured in-place pipe, which you can see a little infographic on the bottom right there of what that looks like.
Could you just elaborate on that? Because I'm fascinated by that, the technology. I mean, I think it's great to be able to reline a pipe, but when I think of the conditions of some of those pipes with cracks and roots and all sorts of things, settling, different things like that, how problematic is it to reline using that system?
I actually am not super familiar with this process. Patrick Wilson, I believe, is the project manager on this. Yes.
Oh, sorry, I touched it like Brian Polson did.
You need a Brian.
Yeah, so John Money, Director of Engineering. So this technology has actually been around for, I want to say it was introduced in about the 70s. So it's gradually grown over time. Typically what they do is they have various techniques where they can go through and clean out the roots or any debris that is there. So there's a series of evaluations that go into whether or not these pipes can be lined. If there are significant cracks, you have to be concerned about it, the liner being damaged when it goes in. Once it's fully cured, again, it's a pipe within a pipe. So it's by far, if you can get it cleaned and into a condition that it can accept one of these liners, it's usually very stable once you get the liner installed. The other thing you have to worry about is you'll get, and we don't see this very often in our pipes, but you'll see an ovaling of the pipes of, so for instance, we mentioned the clay pipe for Gladys McBean, that'll crack along the top, bottoms, and sides, and it'll start crushing. And so once the pipe has done that, it's very hard to line. Most of our pipes are pretty amenable to lining this way. It's also got a lot of technology where you'll pull the liner and then you'll go through with a little cart and it will cut out remotely the services to come back into that line. So reestablishing those services. So it's on the sewer side, again, this is a very useful, very proven technology. On the water side, we also get that. It's not so much on the water side because you have a lot more appurtenances. It's a closed system. There's valves, there's service lines, and other things that don't really lend it to being as effective on the water side. But sewer, it's an old kind of tried and true process. If we can get ahead of evaluating our pipes and getting them addressed before the conditions get progressively worse.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, John. And moving into the last bullet point here, kind of as John said, getting ahead of the condition of these pipes, historical maintenance activities kind of play into, cataloging these issues that are seen. And through that, we can perform an audit through the SSMP that is required and play into the programmatic approach of the CIP by addressing those issues that are found. Board options. Option 1 is approve the 2025 Sewer System Management Plan update, and staff recommends option 1.
I'll move 1.
I'll second.
Okay.
And I'd just like to point out the plan is way more involved than these few slides. It's, 100 and some pages of detail that we reviewed. So, yes, it's a great plan, and I would really like us to, I know we developed this because of mandates for safety. I'd really like us to have a very similar plan for our water side. I know we're working on it in pieces, but it would be good to have kind of an overall plan similar to this. Dan, do we already have one of those, or is it? I know we're off subject of sewer, but.
Well, thank you, Director Dwyer. Dan Corcoran, Operations Director. I think probably the most simple way to answer your question as succinctly as possible. So as you pointed out, this is implemented by the overarching regulatory agencies for drinking water, or excuse me, wastewater. Division of Drinking Water has similar, although not directly correlated, so emergency response plans. There's a series of other related plans that get at exactly what you're talking about, but we of course will take that back and see how we incorporate your specific direction here. So yes, but through alternative regulatory means. That's
okay, great, thank you. I know we're doing detailed pieces like our treatment plant evaluations, and but it would be nice to see a plan kind of all wrapped up in one that's similar for the water side as it is for the wastewater.
Correct, right. So you talk about the treatment plant, then also we've in the capital improvement program, the transition plan assessments, and all these assessments integrated together.
Exactly.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Any questions from the public?
If members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 18, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Anzini, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 18, option 1, moved by Director Day and seconded by Director Dwyer. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Yeah, just one comment. When you turn on the faucet, you have to also be able to flush. Anyway, vote.
We're just waiting for 2 additional board members to vote. Division 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 voting aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, this brings us near the end of our meeting. Can we get a review of assignments or do any comments regarding assignments?
The one assignment that I have from Director Day is he wants a discussion on our operating budget and the size of our district compared, and the size of our debt compared to industry standards and other districts, our size.
And regarding debt service, yes.
And Director Dwyer gave us some direction to staff about at some point integrating all of our water plans into one, similar to the item just presented, the SSMP.
Any other items? Okay. Move for adjournment.
10:39.